I'm not. But I'm just putting it, when in the budget it was 155. That's the budget. I think the central bank is using 135 now. I think so. 141.
131.
131, yeah. That's central bank. Based on what? God knows. Yeah. Now we come to the gross share of oil production in barrels per day. So in the budget speech, the budget speech is assumed that the share of government in the total oil revenue, and the oil is broken down into what we call cost oil and profit oil. Cost oil is producing companies, they are giving to a certain percentage they take in order to cover their costs, operating and developmental, and otherwise. And then what remains is called profit oil, which is divided between the government and the companies, including NADPAC. NADPAC has its own share, by the way. It doesn't get from the government here. So you make a total, say 42% of the total oil revenues, meaning cost and profit combined. Because I don't want to do other details and so forth. So it gets 42%. If it is 42%, you will see that on daily basis, the government will get 46,200 barrels a day. Then, of which Khartoum will take 28 and only remain with us 18,200 per day. So you could see, you are the owner, you are producing it, but it costs you more to transport it to Sudan because of the transitional financial assistance. Now, and the way government shares of oil, the way it goes, the lower the level of production, the lower the percentage government gets. Why? Because most of the revenue is taken by cost oil. So little remain to be divided by way of profit oil. So that's why you see. But then the moment it started to improve, production, daily production started to improve, or even the price to begin to improve, the government shares in the profit oil goes up. So here is 54. There are some argument here and there, but those who know me, they will trust me. I don't want to talk a lot about it, but I was State Minister of Finance for 5 years. And most of my time on a daily basis looking at the oil revenues coming to the country. I was the minister for 1 year, Minister of Petroleum. So trust my numbers, because others will try to play around with. But 54 is the actual now from as of July. But again, I have not done the calculation later. I said, okay, keep it for the time being. And because I've been trying to get with the Minister of Petroleum, he's troubling, I think, it's not been because I want to talk to him. And put him on the spot. That this is, so he's not the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Petroleum. Talk to, that we are getting 54%, what do you say? So I've not got confirmation from the 42 is what in the budget speech of the Minister of Finance last year. And so if you look at, you get now, the government will get 68,580 barrels per day. You will now see Sudan getting 28,000 because they get 28,000 per day anyway. And so the government will remain with 40,500 per day. You now see the government, the government share is improving, compared to when it is 42, because Sudan gets 60%. And by the way, during the CPA, the division was, people say 50-50, but actually it was 49. Sudan take 49%, we took 49%. Because how come? Because you take away the 2% going to oil producing state, and those oil producing state in the south. So what remains of 100% is 98%. And it's divided by 2. We don't get credit of that, but because the well sharing was being negotiated by some smart people, and they did. So, and it is up to our colleagues in finance to run after it, and we are giving you that information. It's a free information. I'm not going to charge you. So it is up to you before you that. Next. In the 5. So if you look at the gross share of oil revenues in the FY 2017-2018, it is $820 million. Okay? But then you pay Sudan 453. Then you pay NIPET 182 million. NIPET and some shady companies which are supposed to be bringing, I call it shady, because you give somebody in order to bring you refined. Why you do that? You can buy right away. But if you read the speech of the minister, you find he's at pain, because there are some power, centers of powers, which are also the centers of indiscipline. So you find some people are being smart, creating all kind of things, and they put it with NIPET because it is hidden under your subsidizing fuel, so that it will begin to ask, people will say, oh, but we are subsidizing because it is affecting the population and all these things. When they are subsidizing the chairman and me and the rest, and the poor person is not getting it. Then, added to that, the companies. So 182 million. That is what this budget speech talked to NIPET. And then you could see payment to oil producing states and communities is only 18 million. These are the owners of the oil. They are getting peanuts. Getting peanuts. And not only that, the pollution is not being cleaned. Those areas are being polluted. Cows, birds, wildlife, even women are affected. And what, at the time when we designed the CPA to give communities a certain percentage, was to take care of the environmental and social impact of oil production. 80 million cannot do it. And then you remain with what? Net oil revenues for years to finance is 166 million. And the total budget will come later on. Total budget 300 million. 300 million and 600,000. Okay, just for $300 million is the total budget, which is meaning expenditure for 2017-2018. And by the way, before we shut down the oil, we're getting more per month. We're getting more than 300. So you could see 300, and actually we're more than that. During the first 6 months of independence, we're getting on average 500 million a month. The budget for 2017-2018, the whole year, 300. So you can see, compare So out of this, government is able to finance 166. The rest is, we show later on, with donors, from project loans, and also from non-oil revenues. Now, if we go to the second scenario, whereby you use the 54 rather, because here you are using the benchmark price of $45 a barrel. If you use 54.19 and 127,000 barrels a day, and don't use my 54, use 1042, you still get $1.5 billion a year for your revenues. And we hold constant those expenditures which were assumed in the budget preparation. You don't increase the expenditure, you hold them constant. What is changing is only revenues. So you could see, of course, Khartoum thing will go up because it is based on the passive. So Khartoum will still get, instead of 453 million, they will now get close to 600 million. NIPED continue, in my view, receiving 182 because it's constant. And that requires also some people who have commented correctly, so that really did NIPED, has NIPED delivered, has they been delivering the subsidized fuel to the market? And the answer, in my view, no. So we need to look at it carefully and then come with the action and see what they have been. But just assume that they have been the years delivering and all these things, so they still get their 182 million. Payment to oil producing states will go up, will become now 73.5 million. So become almost 3.5 times improvement. Then the net oil revenue for government to finance the budget becomes 620 million for the year. And now take, before I said, the budget, which will come shortly, is 300 million. So you have the windfall now, or the fiscal space of 320. Next. Now this is the expenditure. Yeah, it is there, 300,600,000. Or $300.6 million as expenditure. It continues to be assumed constant. And so you will have, in a set of a gap, in the first, under the assumption of the budget, and if things do not change, then we would have 134 million gap, which is being financed through non-oil revenues and all those things. But if we take my actual numbers, then basically you don't need any other in order to finance the budget. You can finance it from your oil revenues and still have a surplus. That's the whole premise of the paper. And shows it's true, numbers are there. The physical space is there. So that, so if we have a physical space of, or say 300 million, but you can say 160 at 150, because we are talking about the actual 6 months, leave my projection. The first half, I got reminded by colleagues from DFID sent comments who received the papers, and they say, but Khartoum is taking a cargo every other month. So 6 months, if Khartoum, and it's not reflected, if Khartoum has taken, they've taken, it is every other month, so they've taken 3 cargos. And the cargo is 600,000 barrels. To make it simple, you could say still, say Khartoum has taken half of 150 based on arrears. But for me, I will not. I'll continue arrears, I'll put them as a debt and focus on the reality. But nevertheless, you still have a fiscal space of dividing 150 by 2, you have $75 million. Question is, but why are we still, government is still unable to pay salaries and wages on time? Members of Parliament, I think from last week, they is now paying November salary. Member of Parliament. This is the most powerful group. What about others? What about the state? So, what is happening? You don't go anywhere else. You look at the speech of the Minister of Finance. Indiscipline. This is what the Minister of Finance said. Indiscipline. Nobody, even myself, when I talk here and then when I do action, I don't do it. Because I want to be exempted. I'm a special, well then no, I don't. This is what the minister is saying. So even you members of Parliament, you also part of the problem. This is what he is telling us. So, and that's the gist of the matter. The challenges I've talked about, because the challenges of course, ending war is a challenge, and it's being financed. But it's already taken care of when you are doing the budget. The security sector is taking 60% of the budget. So it's a challenge. It doesn't need to be. The second challenge is this inherent indiscipline. It's a major challenge. And of course others. Then you have opportunities. 2 key opportunities. The revitalization process is an opportunity, because if you reach peace agreement, then the government now can be hard in cracking down the violators, and also begin to spend less on the security sector, even though it may not be true, because you are also absorbing the armed group. So the bill may go up anyway, but it will go up, you are not doing destruction things. Because from economic point of view, even though we are consuming but importing things, you need consumptions generate economic growth. Because more people will be paying those who are fighting. So instead they were doing destructive things, they will now do productive things, or at least they'll be neutral in terms of, but they'll get more money where they'll be consuming, buying things, and that will generate economic activity. So it is an opportunity in my view. Oil production will go up. Oil production will go up. It may go back to 300, 350 before. And before the rest of the world, if you read the news, if it is true, I understand Germany is trying to prohibit cars using diesel. That is going to be a problem on us. So the demand for our thing will, over the next 5 years, we have to be careful. The electric cars are coming to, and it's also, in my view, will be opportunity to, because we, and David, I hope you will have the, I was trying to share some documents with him, he has them also, So maybe it should be bold enough to share some of those things. But the mortgaging is going on. The minister of indiscipline is real. You know, some people are selling oil without the knowledge of the Ministry of Finance. And documents are just being produced. Even central bank giving guarantees without the Minister of Finance and the Minister. Even some of the, I understand, maybe explain later on, one of the undersecretaries has been suspended because he also acted indisciplinedly because the Minister of Finance has suspended borrowing from the central bank. So no more printing. Somebody went down and authorized the central bank to print. That's the meaning of that. So, in my view, the indiscipline, the solution is not as in Parliament. Because we have already shown we have not been able. So I'm thinking outside the box. Create a body which will consist of people in government, Parliament, NGOs, civil society, and the development partners. Understand from our friend from David that is working in Somalia. So to do oversight on this free spending is one of the things. Agritisa, because he's not able to come, he has said, we need more than that. And he's right in a way, but if you look on whether the publication by the Ebony or others, or even government and donors, the World Bank, IMF, we have been talking about the strengthening institutions of economic governance. Chapter 4 of the agreement talk about that. So I felt that there was no need to waste time to talk about those things again. We have been saying them and they are not being implemented. So we have been saying we strengthen institutions. Strengthen institutions, the more we talk about those things, the more we mismanage. So we need something else. But yes, I take into consideration what Honorable Agritisa is saying, yeah, we put it there. But for me, saying the same thing all over again doesn't help. So there were also questions from a colleague from David that these numbers, are they pure? And my answer is yes. These are after the Central Processing Facility, CPF. You know, I've not checked now, but it will be worse. During my time, whatever come from the field goes to the 100 barrel, which go to the Central Processing Facility. During my time, about 80% of that is dirty water. This is what goes back. And what remained was 20. So, different comment, they thought 127, does it include the dirty water? And the answer is, it does not include. What my figures are after the Central Processing Facility. So I don't use and those are, they are not usually used unless you want to make some. They were used during our time by the SPLM to challenge Khartoum, to say Khartoum, and they brought the, what is that, global witness, and they were talking about 6 billion loss. And when I brought the global witness coming from them years, and I brought the Chinese, and we had a field day, you know, in the friendship hall in Khartoum, and the Chinese were on top. Global witness people turned red. And they could not, and I was asking them, I want our $6 billion. So this is what you are saying. And they were just looking at, they went down and looked at those production figures which go to the central coast. These are not actual good. Because 80% during my time is dirty water which is being pushed back. And by the way, it was wrongly, and it's something we should have at the time was too late. You know, water goes to central processing facility is on the northern side, a place called Jabalate. The dirty water is pushed back to the south. So they take the clean thing and then give you what the Americans say is shit. I'm sorry with my language. And so those guys were smart in saying, oh, you take your another thing. So I want to conclude here because it took me a longer time in order to just to explain that particular table, which is a framework for fiscal space. And I hope especially young people here might be able to at least understand that part, that the fiscal space is when you have some extra money, but they also assume that there's enough discipline so that you don't misuse whatever extra money you get. But if you look at the paper, and I have purposely quoted a lot the Minister of Finance, because this is how in economic research we are trained that way. You have to show evidence. What is the evidence? The speech of the minister is evident. And the evidence is confirmed. He was talking about a time when there was no fiscal space. And that thing called indiscipline is what is preventing us to make use of the fiscal space. Evidenced by the fact that government is unable to pay salaries. Thank you.
Including the setting up of a committee to investigate the oil producing companies and the provisions given. And that it was not followed through, and this is what is raising up. In Khartoum, he also was taken there to follow up what happened. And again, you've heard what he said. We're virtually been giving away our oil. As I said earlier, it is not a complaint, but negative facts can actually amount to this. He, because of the frustration that is being experienced, the parliament, which is a member, is not playing its oversight function. He says parliament has failed. The government is not helping, it's talking about indiscipline. If you get a minister or undersecretary giving away millions and the government does nothing, that's not indiscipline, that is corruption. The government also, apparently, by his admission, has failed. Now, out of this, in other words, the system is not functioning in managing the finances of this country. So out of this frustration is suggesting another mechanism called the TAF, Transparency and Accountability Forum. We don't know what is going to work, but that's a proposal. But let us get other people also engaged in this. Mayo has been with us in the word sharing and also in the implementation of one of the commissions of the committee for implementing some quick wins.
Good morning, everybody. My name is David Nailo Mayo. I'm the chair for Finance and Economic Planning in the National Assembly, TNLA. Whenever the budget is done, it is committed to my committee to review it. So I have been in that same committee as a member since 2005. And prior to that, as stated by the moderator, we have been together in the negotiations leading to the comprehensive peace agreement in Naivasha, which ushered in the return of the movement back home and the running of the referendum. So we have been all around this area all along. I want to thank Dr. Lual for this very beautiful paper analyzing the budget of 2017-2018. First, I will say the budget of 2017-2018 was a deficit budget. It came with a deficit of nearly 47%. The fiscal gap was too large to even contemplate how to cover it. But nonetheless, we had to do our part. The Minister of Finance came with several assumptions on how to get the revenue. First was that we put a benchmark for oil at $45 per barrel. That was the benchmark we used in the budget. The exchange rate we put at 155 SSP to the dollar. These ones are very, very important aspects to consider in the budget as to how do you calculate the budget. Although the current price now have reached up to 62 per barrel, which if discounted because our DAR blend is a heavy blend, you discount it downwards, so you will have already gone more than $45. That was the benchmark at the budget time. The minister also came with an appeal to the National Assembly, to the National Legislature, that we want fuel subsidy to be lifted. The Assembly was not very much enthusiastic, fearing of a creeping revolution that could happen if all of a sudden you remove the fuel subsidies. People might go to the streets. So we are very cautious on that. And instead, we asked the Honorable Minister to go and study other options, including trial of floating the fuel, see what will happen. But as up to now, many petrol stations bring their fuel and they sell at market price, and nothing is happening. So we assume that actually this should be the time to remove the fuel subsidy, because that fuel subsidy had its own promises. One of the promises was that we will be able to pay salaries on time. And there should be no reason now that everything seems to be going smoothly. Furthermore, we are also given a financial bill, which we did. These are non-oil revenues which we get from taxation, and the financial bill is an annual estimate on what rates to charge at this particular year. In the expenditure part of it, the TFA, Dr. Lual spoke about, continues to drain a lot of our resources because it takes $24.1 per barrel. So if the price is 45, you subtract 24.1, you find a lot of nearly more than 40% of the expenditure goes to Khartoum. Yes, I was present when we were negotiating with Khartoum. I was a subcommittee chair on assets and liabilities. Sudan has, as we are talking, more than 40 billion foreign debts. And they also wanted us to pay part of the debt. So those negotiations are even still going on. But at most, what was really very painful was something called transitional financial assistance, which is $15, equivalent to $15 per barrel, charged upon us. Of course, the British did not charge Sudan at independence any fee. They didn't even seize the cotton. which was the main export that time. But these guys really said, you are taking all the oil. We need you to give us some, because the economy of Sudan will be worse off, as you are now taking more than 70% of the oil. That time, yes, it was feasible, because the price at the international market stood at $110 per barrel. Our chief negotiator thought that we could pay off Khartoum of this TFA very quickly by giving a solid figure instead of giving a percentage. Of course, we won against that, but you know, decision is decision. Somebody who is the boss can decide. So that was very unfortunate. We wish we had used percentages, by which now we will not be paying high TFA to Khartoum, especially when our production is very, very, very low. Let me also respond to the question of indiscipline in the budget, which has been raised again and again. Actually, you will see indiscipline in budget implementation as an epitome of fragility itself. Let me repeat that. Indiscipline in budget is an epitome of fragility itself. Now, let's talk of last year's budget. Here we signed the RCs in August 2015. And in the beginning, by the end of 2015, the IO started to come in. Where did they put them? They didn't give them tents and say, go at the bank of the river there and put your tents. They were put in Crown Hotel and some of the most expensive hotels here. Who pays? It's the government. And there was no provision. There was no provision in the budget for the incoming. We had to buy them Toyota Land Cruisers so that they could feel happy that we are now part of the government. And where do you get the money? You have to buy this nonetheless, but they were not budgeted. Now, finally, Dr. Riek Machar came in with all what was, how do you feed them, etc., etc. So it is obvious that what was not budgeted the state must somehow provide. And when it is reflected, you find the budget of the Ministry of Finance has gone more than 1,000 times what was budgeted. Same applies to when uncertainties occur, and the Ministry of Finance, as the government account holder, has to pay or do whatever is necessary. So budget indiscipline, I'm not defending the Minister of Finance, because I keep asking him all the time, why has your budget gone so high? And will tell me the reasons, and I definitely agree on some aspects. With the whooping fiscal gap that we had this year of 47%, it becomes also very necessary to recognize that we are in a war situation. In a war situation, most of resources are channeled towards protecting the sovereignty of the nation. So a lot of resources are poured towards the war, and I agree with Honorable Dr. Deng on his four key challenges here. One is ending the war and reaching peace agreement. I totally agree with that. Indiscipline, I have explained. Managing the exchange rate. I will come to the exchange rate soon when I will be touching on monetary policy. And reorienting humanitarian assistance toward food and security. Yeah. Yes, first ending the war. If we end the war, definitely there will be more greater opportunities. First, resources now being channeled towards the war will be now channeled towards what we call 5 R's: reconstruction, rehabilitation, reintegration, all those 5 R's. The resources will be challenged there. And you may know that in the peace agreement, there is special reconstruction fund, which would be. So resources will be channeled towards, the returns, the getting people out of POCs to their homes, and getting the IDPs resettled wherever they want to be resettled. So, but the challenge, of course, now is that we are revitalizing the agreement. I'm pleased to state that as of last week, we saw there was a great deal of progress in the negotiations. And I think if that momentum is sustained in the next round, I think peace can really be secured. On monetary policy, exchange rate is a component of monetary policy. For some of us who are hesitant about how to arrest the exchange rate, we felt that we should have gone a little bit slower, especially when you don't have an anchor, something to stop the slippery hillside from sliding further. Our role as MPs to oversee the bank has been advised, falling on deaf ears. The unfortunate part. I don't want to talk about the oversight role right now, but it is a reality in the country that some powerful men he was describing are actually the real runners of the economy. There are some men you don't see, but they are the ones really running the economy here. Running and ruining it at the same time. If they run well and good, but they run and ruin it. The first challenge I'm talking here on page 6 of the paper, that is reorienting humanitarian assistance towards production. I know the international community is not yet are not enthusiastic about channeling funds for production right now or for development, because until the guns are silenced, perhaps we will be in agreement that some of the resources going for humanitarian aid should now be diverted for development. There are some quieter areas though in South Sudan whereby you could actually do development. The international development partners should not necessarily punish those peaceful areas which could now be benefiting from development, because it might be an incentive for even the neighboring to also stop banditry and benefit from development. Now, I'm summarizing the speech of my colleague here, and I may not do good justice if I have skipped some. You can remind me later during question times. Thank you so much.
And on the recommendation of some women who saw that all the panelists were men, Dr. actually thought some of us were not in town. I would like to thank also you who took your time to come and listen to us and make us share on this important topic. Dr. Luad actually defines what he meant by physical space. saying that is an availability of budgetary room that allows the government to provide resources for a desired purpose. So it is room, but for a desired purpose, without any prejudice to the sustainability of a government's financial position. So the room should be there for spending budget which is not allocated and it is sitting there available without actually prejudicing the one which is already allocated in the budget. If you read through literature, you will find that many people argue, including World Bank, that financial bodies that give fiscal space, it means the fiscal space can be created for spending on investments that can in turn pay itself back. So it will not be a fiscal space that you just spend and don't get return, whether it is in a short term or in a long term. Some of the returns will not come back in money or in physical terms. Some of the returns will come back in the improvement of the status of the country. For example, if you have a physical space to spend on infrastructure, such as a road, you are sure of getting it back through taxes in a non-oil revenue. Sometimes I ask myself why the government is not spending money in some investment that can give them quick win. For example, the Undersecretary will tell us why the government is not paying its shares in the cooperative bank, where they know at the end of the year they can get some interest back, which will add up to their budget. And he is a member of the board of the cooperative bank. Cooperative bank is halfly owned by the government of South Sudan, but it is managed totally and almost owned by the partner, which is the Cooperative Bank of Kenya. So this is one mismanagement, which is a missed opportunity for the government to get a fiscal space. Honorable Agre Sabuni, the advisor to the President on Economic Affairs, actually said that our problem was because we shut down the oil in 2012, in a time when there was nothing put aside for rainy days. I remember at that time I was a cabinet minister of agriculture, at the time we shut down the oil. And we debated for months. The Minister of Petroleum traveled to and fro Khartoum, negotiating with Khartoum. Khartoum was taking the oil completely. As soon as it's arrived, they will just take, and they didn't consider that the South needed. So in the end, the cabinet said, what is the use of now getting the oil out while the South does not benefit? And that was the reason why the cabinet decided that they should shut down. But the cabinet also had asked the Minister of Finance at that time, do we have anything that can take us forward if we shut down the oil? And as much as I remember, the cabinet was told there was something reserved for the government to move on. But as soon as the oil was shut down, then we ran into the problem of not being able to manage it. So, information getting out in order for informed decision to be made is also one of the problems we have to enable the government have a physical space. A lot of our budget goes for the security sector. But the question we should ask ourselves is, if this budget is supposed to guarantee security and the rule of law, we are spending over 60% of the budget on security sector. Have we really guaranteed security? Have we? Instead, we are seeing the insecurity increasing. We are increasing expenditures and we are increasing insecurity. Shouldn't we sit down and rethink the amount of money we are putting on the security sector, and yet we are not improving the security? Of course, there has been no allocations for capital expenditures at all. Even the salary, which is the rights of the citizens, is not being paid in time. There is no creation of public goods. Ministry of Gender, which should be a ministry taking the welfare promotion of the people, is the most underfunded. Even the little that have been allocated to them in the budget is not physically allocated to them to spend. This means when we are talking of a physical space to spend, we need to begin to look at the priorities. Where do we put this excess money that can generate itself so that it can expand to other uses? The other thing we have is the unrealistic budgeting process of South Sudan budget. I say unrealistic because I've been a cabinet minister and I struggled to work out the budget of the ministry, National Ministry of Agriculture. One thing, the staff get bogged down with the ceiling the Minister of Finance gives. The second thing is that the National Legislative Assembly do not ask the ministries for their work plans, which they have costed to come up with the budget. So to me, the budget we have in these budget books are all imaginary figures. We think what should be done and then we put a figure to it. Because I've not seen a ministry that have costed its work plan and that work plan was translated into a budget. When I tried to do it, we got difficulties. Because you cost your work plan, you send it to finance, they will tell you your ceiling is this, and they will begin to remove things without asking you. They don't ask the ministry, they will say they are above the ceiling, then they say this is cut off, this is, whether it is important to that ministry or it is not important. So how would you really manage a budget properly if it is being decided by another ministry? The other thing, Honorable Mayo has already said that we do deficit financing. The Minister of Finance also talked about it. Why would we want to have 47% of our budget in deficit with the hope that somebody somewhere will fill this gap? I would want to argue that it's better we budget with the 40% amount of money that we have than inflate it and have a 40%, 47% deficit financing. Now, if we look at the financial year 2017-2018 in the framework which Dr. Lual has given us, we see that the oil production increased by 17,000 barrels. Actually, I looked at this table. The first one is about oil production. Happily, it increased by 17,000 barrels per day. And then when you look at the price of dark crude, and then you calculate that the price was estimated to be $45 per barrel, and yet Khartoum takes away 24.1, and then TFA takes 9.1, no, TFA takes 15, and the processing fee is 9.1. If you add this total, it is actually $48 per barrel, $48.2 per barrel, more than the benchmark. So actually from the beginning we are already budgeting on a deficit in finance, because it will be more by $3.2 per barrel. Now, we luckily got the actual, which was more than what we planned. So an additional 57 million would be available. An additional 57 million would be available. The other problem we have is the non-oil revenue collection. Certainly enough, this is an elephant in the room that needs money. So look at the challenges which Dr. Lual has put up and also suggestions. Surely ending the war is an urgent issue, as many malpractices are behind the curtain of recurrent wars. So we need to end the war quickly. The negotiation going on in Addis hopefully will bring us the end to this very quickly. Discipline management needs the Ministry of Finance to come up with the ways of how it can make its spending agencies be disciplined, not only themselves, but also spending agencies. Finally, I want to say I am a member of parliament, but as members of parliament, we have even failed to oversee any ministry. So suggesting a forum that will look at discussing all this together would be useful, but I would suggest that it should be in collaboration with the relevant committees in the parliament that are either the economic committee and the committee that oversees the government expenditures. I thank you.
Well, we are left with one more panelist, and then your time will come to ask questions and elaborate.
In the failure of the national legislature overseeing the whole thing, and also not using the additional resources properly. This is, I think, what I have summarized in his paper. And he went on giving an alternative as to how we should address these two areas, or three areas rather: the management, failure of the parliament, and the misuse of the additional resources. Before I go ahead, I feel this paper, the invitation, the people in the room here are not the right audience. It is maybe the development partners, because I can see the decision makers of this country are not here. As he mentioned, there are certain powerful people somewhere who dictate certain situations. So I wish Dr. Lual should have invited this key personnel that is suspected, or the decision makers here. But this one cannot avoid us discussing it. He has already made it very clear, the details, we cannot dispute the figures, and the chairman also supported the whole situation. Indiscipline, by the way, budget generally is a procurement problem. The whole budget ends up in the market. All that money we get, it ends up in the market as procurement. And this money that we misappropriate goes to the market. Who is misappropriating it? Yes, finance is a part of it, but maybe finance, 98% is the other sectors of the economy. That's why I say these people should have come in, because they initiate the expenditure, we release it. Whether it's properly spent, that's become an issue. There is expenditure outside the budget. Who initiated it? Finance definitely does not initiate it. Also, some sectors who have budgeted initiate this. And we are forced by certain conditions to overspend. Certain decisions are right. There are certain expenditure that are not budgeted for, but they are necessary, who are budgeted outside the budget. I think this one, some of them are acceptable. The failure of the parliament, I don't think we can say entirely it is the failure of the parliament really. Because the laws are there. Anti-corruption is there. Audit General is there. Law enforcement organs are there. Why should we place this blame to one unit? I think these sectors also play a significant role in the failure of the execution of the budget. We need to do that. The conclusion of Dr. saying we should have an alternative forum does not help. Because these same stakeholders are the people actually playing the same game. Will they not compromise their interests? Example is that all of us here, investors, private sector, NGOs, the government, the NGOs have offshore banking, but they are staying here. Development partners are banking outside. And they employ some of us, and they get here, and they go to the same market here. If they offshore, where do they get the money? The money does not come directly through our banks, the commercial bank. So the money comes directly in our pockets. And it is deposited into what? Into the black market. We should have helped the government by putting it in the commercial banks so that the bank should also have an improved reserve to have hard currency so that the bank can plan properly to assist the government in addressing issues which are foreign denominated. So the inflation, in fact, is being promoted by all of us. Because some of us go abroad with the money and they come out with a balance. They don't put it in the bank, they put it in the pocket, deposit it in the black market. Now, how do we escape all this? We are responsible for this, all of us. So individually, each one of us has to accept this, and we have to say we might change, at least, so that we do something better than this. The additional resource that doctor mentioned, yes, there may be additional resources, but he also acknowledged that there is a deficit budget. So that additional money is absorbed by the deficit. It is eaten up by the deficit. We're not collecting more than the 32. I mean the 46. The expenditure is 46, but the resources available is 32. So we have not gone beyond 46. So the money is not there. But there is a reasonable effort. We are trying our best. If I tell you that almost about 6 months, we've been paying the salary through our local revenue. Without the oil, you will not believe, but it is. Just the recent salaries that we are paying out. We pay through our local revenues. But of course, there are a lot of leakages. And these leakages come from most of us. There are strong personalities who are actually causing all this. That's why I'm saying, if the right audience were to be here, maybe some of them will change when we talk together. But I remain maybe to hear from you because we are not, unfortunately, by the way, we are the people who are challenged, and we are the one here. I thought neutral bodies should have been the one here because we are defensive in a way. But the parliament, the entire board here is the parliament and the finance. So we are not going to give right answers. Like Dr. Betty said here, that why are we not paying the cooperative body, cooperative bank? We are paying. We are paying daily, let me say, because we have already written to cooperative bank, they are collecting money on behalf of the government. We told them to collect 30% of whatever they collect and take it as a share of the government of South Sudan. So in 6 months' time, we may be finished with our contribution for the information. The interest is not there. If there is any dividends, the dividends will be shared by all of us, the two parties. The question of unrealistic, yes, I can say maybe unrealistic budgeting. It is not finance budgeting. It is the individual institution budgeting. And the question of finance dictating on them, it is the resource envelope that is dictating. The resources are available. We cannot just make a budget open-ended like that. The resources are not there. We have tried to say the resources are these 32 available. That is what we have. We have to spend within this. It is the ministry's concern that should tell us that this year we have to spend on A, B, C, D, period. Opportunity cost must be there. Some of the activities have to be deferred. So we don't dictate on whatever the ministries are doing. We are not doing that. We don't dictate and we don't decide on them. It is the revenue resource that is, envelope is the one dictating. So I want first of all to stop here and maybe hear some questions that may come up, and some of my colleagues are around who may give also some answers to some of the questions they are going to raise. Thank you very much.
I'll incorporate the comments when I'm making the revised version. Let me maybe clarify some of the things. On page 6, when we say balancing the budget, because when the Minister of Finance said there were 47% gap in the resources available, he just didn't leave it. He said, but it will be closed through the following. So he put A, non-oil revenues, okay, of 90, you could say $91 million. Then external grants of 2.6 million. Then external project loans of 14. Then treasury bills, going from commercial bank through the central bank, treasury bills. And advance oil sale, meaning selling the oil while it's still not out, still on the ground. Then you close the gap. Fortunately, with improved oil production and prices, you could actually finance but those things are not going to go away. They are there. They are being given, even the treasury bill. What needs to be stopped is the advance sale, which is being misused, in my view. So that's when the minister was talking, he was talking about those. I'm also glad that my colleague, Dr. David Mayo, has said publicly here, and this is a point also for we are good friends, but we have been disagreeing on that part. That subsidy is not helping the ordinary person. Subsidy is helping us only, those who have the cash. They are now, for the first time, accepted that. And when we say you lift subsidies, you can provide targeted subsidies, for instance. The public transport, those who are used by the public, you can give them subsidy. This is targeted subsidy, but not a blanketed one, which is benefiting those who are already well off. You know, the problem is that when I did my economics a long time ago, greed and animal spirit, I never thought I would witness them practically. I have seen in South Sudan too much greed and too much animal spirit. At least you have to reach a point where you say enough is enough. No. The more you take, the more you want more. Very strange. And this is the situation we are in. You have talked of, for instance, the question of anti-corruption and Auditor General. They put their report before Parliament. Parliament does not act. You know, there was, when we came back from Khartoum and the first report by the Auditor General, he mentioned $1 billion that disappeared in 2006, which I brought to their attention, I think, when I was still there. Some people in Parliament cried. They could not believe it. But I think it's not enough to cry. Take action. So it's not anti-corruption problem. It is not Auditor General problem because they have been reporting. It is Parliament to say, no, what has happened with this? We have what we call the Dura Saga. Okay. Where some people came out with bills and say $6.2 billion. You know, President Uhuru Kenyatta, at the time he was Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. And we met in Turkey during the annual meetings of the World Bank. I used to lead the delegation of the government of Sudan to IMF World Bank missions. And so we are discussing as African ministers of finance some issues. So I raised a point which he liked. And he came to me, then what are you doing in Khartoum? Go to Juba. And he said, look, this, the so-called Dura, which has gone, he said there are two indicators you can look at. It could have been a mountain you can see from Torit if it is put in Juba. Second, he said, you check, because where are you bringing in your Dura? From Mombasa, check our road. They would have really affected our roads. That was Kenyatta saying that, which is true. And some people just imagine that $6.2 billion spent on Dura. We have another one called LC, letter of credit. Another $1 billion. Report is what? Before Parliament. Auditor General was given, and David was pushing for that, I think, given time. To report within, was it 45 days or something like that? And he reported to Parliament. What did Parliament do? Parliament went snoring. Yeah. You know the meaning of snoring? Yeah. So, and again, the Undersecretary is saying, where are the right people? You are the right people, especially the young people and the women. Members of Parliament, my colleague in Cabinet, and all, we invite them all the time. And especially when it is something like this, I guarantee you, I know they will not come. And yeah, and I knew they will not come. We have invited them. Pull out with telephone. Please, these things are important. But it becomes a habit. Some of you later on become ministers because we have here the DPF forum. It's a forum which has larger members of cabinet. They have been passing their members of the DPF, even what we call the electronic DPF. And the moment they become ministers, they stay away. So, you know, you can't compel, you can't force people to. And if they know it all, and this is also the disease we have in South Sudan, that I know it all. And I tell people, some of us learn on a daily basis. You learn new things. I learn from my children, for instance. They learn from me later, but I continue learning from them on a daily basis. Interactions here, we learn from them, but we cannot compel people to be in. David is put it right, because in discipline is because of fragility, and when you have a fragile environment, your institutions are weak. The law enforcement, he was saying that we parliament are not law enforcement agents, which is true, but if the parliament is strong and begin to challenge the government, but because of my good friend John Luke, they call him now John Luke Constitution. John Luke Constitution has given the power to the president to dissolve parliament, so people are afraid. If you begin to be hard, the president can dissolve. And if I am, I will dissolve it, because this is the power I have. By the way, when you look at the constitution, powers are given to the president, and then when they exercise those powers, people complain. But they are in the constitution. So unless you change the constitution in order to give you some powers. The Undersecretary, I think you have the right audience, because the young people here, the future is theirs. We call them sunrise generation. I think you are in midday. George and I, we are the sunset generation. And we don't want, and David is a midday. We don't want the sunset and the midday generation to mess up your future. Because this is your future, and they are the right people to ask questions. They will ask you questions. I was telling George, don't push him also too much, because we don't want to lose you. You can be dismissed. So you follow your line, the professionals you have answered, and the records are there. You know, I went when I visited him to tell him that you are going to be a discussion, because I usually avoid to go to finance, because I see things which pain me. And when I was there, some junior people just come in, and I'm meeting with them, and they have been told, I have a meeting. They come and sit down there, and they are carrying papers for him to sign, in display. That's it. I saw it myself. And those in discipline, they come from the certain ethnic group. That's what I saw. The pain some of our people go through. So I keep away from. So if we are not careful, the whole civil service has to be overhauled. You know, I joined in '73, government here, Australia. We were all pushed through 1 month all together, whether we are which one, but trained. How to do memos. And they tell us, don't put anger in writing. If you are angry with somebody, don't put in writing. Display that you have no matter. Orders come up, document. Even if you are against, don't go and tell your boss, I'm not doing it. No, it's not like that. You give your reason, or if you implement, you say, I'm implementing based on your orders. Because when later on put it up, it's no longer the case. I see. And then we have the tendency to say, oh, it is somebody else. If the judge, I would say this meeting was not succeeding because George did not moderate it well. You know, we have that system where we complain. Our civil servant, then I say the undersecretary, minister, the minister will say the president, and so forth. And because he was saying this thing is all of us, which is correct, by the way. Yeah. It is all of us, and we have to take it upon ourselves. If we say it is our own responsibility, when you see something not happening right, report. Thank you, moderator.
And I think he has not said anything that incriminates him or exposes anybody. What he says is the truth. The other thing is all of us here have conflict of interest because we're in the government and we're in parliament. I think the reason we're here is this, at least we're able to say, look, we are wrong, unlike other people who have that mental malleability to accept that you're wrong and try to correct it. This is what we're doing here. If all of us develop that mental disposition, we can address issues, not in a state of denial all the time and you do continue doing the wrong things all through. So these issues, I think, are important. If the journalists air them and they hear, if they are not deaf, I think they'll benefit from what we say here. So on that note, I want to now ask you to participate. You've been listening very actively and taking notes, and I think there are issues probably you need some clarification. But don't push somebody into saying things which are not good, particularly our brother here. So I will begin with the ladies, our mothers. There is a lady on the back. Please go straight to the question. If you have a comment, make it brief. Thank you.
I was always asking myself about who were those people who negotiated about the issue of the oil with the Khartoum. Because we went to the bush, then I was Lumi. Because Khartoum were underdeveloping us, they are marginalizing us, and all that you can think of. I was so surprised to hear that we are giving them help, that they are giving transitional financial assistance for killing us. We have just come from the bush, we have nothing. How do you go and help somebody like that? Those debts that they have incurred is because they were buying the weapons to kill us. And now we are paying them for that. I'm really it pains me so much. Because our people are suffering because of this. They are taking almost more than half of what we are supposed to be getting. Right now, if you go outside there, the people are really suffering. Oh, you're sucking. The water, this one, this Nile here, you pay 1 barrel is 200. That is in a Hainim, these urban places. What if you go down to Budele and other places? Do you people really know how our people suffer? And we are still continuing to give Khartoum what they don't deserve. They don't deserve. I'm very sorry for the people who are there. I'm sorry, Dr. Mayo, that you are there. What I'm trying to say is, we have just learned from the presentation of today that physical space. Don't we have also another physical space for renegotiating that? So that we get back what we deserve. The Khartoum doesn't deserve.
Thank you.
That is one, and the other one is about the issue of the salaries. The three armed groups, the arms of the government, I wanted to ask, are they really independent? Are they autonomous the way it is in the Constitution? Because if the strings are there attached, how do you ask somebody to come? Because what I know is the Parliament is supposed to ask the ministers, even the president, to come and explain some of the things which are not there. I'm not a parliamentarian, but I always go there because I'm not working. I used to be a minister, but Anna Saban says Makalamata.
Thank you.
My question goes to Undersecretary of Finance. Wanibuyu, you mentioned very important thing about the budget.
Speaker.
You mentioned very important thing about the budget. You know that if you want to make your budget, sometimes you must put something like contingency. It allows you to put احتياطي في الميزانية بتاعك. For example, مثلا زي أننا عندنا أطفال بتاعنا قاعدين يمشوا مدارس. أنت لو قاعد تعمل ميزانية بتاع مدرسة بتاعه أنت بتعمل ميزانية كامل بتاع السنة. وميزانية بتاع السنة دي لازم تكون فوق شنو احتياطي. أنا قلت الكلام ده ليه؟ لأنه جبت ذكرت الكلام بتاع expenditures, additional expenditures out of the budget. I think أنت قلت الكلام ده جبت. ده يا بيكون في شنو؟ بيكون في contingency بتاعك. لما أنت تعمل ميزانية بتاع الدولة كامل بيكون في احتياطي، واحتياطي ده بيكون في الاكسبنديتشر اللي انت ذكرته الجبال ده بيكون فيه سوا. ده الكلام اللي عندنا بنقوله لواني. انت لو شفتها لو راجعنا في التكسيشن اللي هو في الضرائب، ضرائب كل ما زاد قاعد يزيد في الاسواق، انت بتلقى انه ضريبه كله بيرفع فوق. انا ده نعرف ليه كل زمن ضريبه بيرفع فوق في الاسواق. نمرة 3 رب البيت يذكر كلام جميل جدا انه كلام بتاع parliamentarians. البرلمان من المفترض انه تشوف على الورك بلان بتاعت المينستريز اللي هو خطه بتاعت الوزارات، على اضافه انه الميزانيات بتاعت الوزارات بتاعت السنه كامل عشان تخش في الميزانيه. انت لما تشوف انا عملت المراقبه في الحاجات دي كله ادمين ده انت بتعرف انه الميزانيه بتاعت الدوله في كل وزاره بياخد كم ميزانيته، زي ما جبال ما ذكر انه قال مشكله بتاعت المرتبات ومشكله بتاعت المرضات، لانه في most of the people are sick. قال برا من الميزانيه، انت لما تمشي معليه بيقول انه والله ما عندنا ميزانيه للناس المرضانين. يبقى انه كدوله انت لازم تعمل ميزانيه.
You're saying good things, but we have friends here who don't understand Arabic. You want them to benefit, even in English, right?
Yes. Yeah. برضو ميزانيه. I'm talking about also the budget of the sicknesses. Those people of sicknesses must be put in the budget. Like sometimes if you go to the finance, it's not there. When you go to finance, إذا لما تمشي ميزانية المالية بكل ما عنده ميزانية للناس المرضانين. أنت لما تعمل ميزانية بتاع الدولة it means that if you are making budget of the country you have to include all items in the budget, including sicknesses, all educations, all things should be part of that according to the policies of the government must be there in the budget. And thank you very much.
Rajab Mohandis. I work for a civil society network called the South Sudanese Network for Democracy and Elections. The government in the peace talks. And the issue of the Transitional Legislative Assembly is quite contentious. There are parties recommending that the parliament should be dissolved completely and then reconstituted in a manner that it is efficient and can deliver on the mandate of the revitalized agreement. Now, from your own words, it looks like you are admitting to us that the parliament actually has ceased to be relevant to the country. So in this regard, do we still need this transitional national legislative assembly, or do we even need to expand it? The next question is to Dr. Mayo.
This question is to who?
This one is to the legislators, to the members of parliament at the panel. So any MP can take it up. The next one is to Dr. Mayo. You talked about the potential for payment of salaries given this fiscal space we're talking about. I was just wondering whether the salaries, even if they are paid regularly, still relevant to the employees, given that these salaries are paid based on